happening in real time, every day, all across the African world. But if we're not conscious of the goal, we won't do the work to get there. We are people at war. We have been at war for some 3,000 years now. We've been particularly in a beautiful, or how do you say, I don't want to call it beautiful, this most extraordinary fight against genocide. The worst genocide in the history of humankind was committed against this race. They call it colonialism, they call it imperialism, they call it slavery, and try to make it sound like some work program that we were offered. But it is the worst genocide in the history of the world. And we're trying to recover from it. And we've had an extraordinary journey with revolutions from Haiti to Brazil to Zimbabwe to South Africa. We have been fighting to free ourselves from this thing that has come upon us for the sake of wanting things to build their society that pretends to be civilization. And then they tampered with our minds because we are trying to imitate the thing. And we're not trying to imitate the thing. We imitate the thing better than the thing can imitate itself. So we don't have to wait to, how do you say, do their dirty work. We've been seeing on the internet about 23 presidents of Africa was killed by France. Not a white man pulled the trigger. Black hands killed the 23 presidents. Think of that now. We can say France killed the 23 presidents. Black hands and black minds killed the 23 presidents. That we know about. We don't know about all of the other freedom fighters that have been slaughtered, men and women, along the way. But we have a young man and a group of young women and men. It isn't just Thomas. Oh, I'm thinking of Thomas Sankara. I should call Thomas' name first. I did get to meet him, and I also got to meet his murderer, Kampara, who was not just a friend and not just a comrade of Sankara, but when Kampara's father died, Sankara's father took that boy into his home and raised him beside Thomas. And yet he took money from the French to murder his brother. That's how deep our minds are messed up. No one can make you a slave unless you make a decision that you want to be a slave. Somebody can try to enslave you, and they can force you to do work, but they can't make you a slave unless you decide to be a slave. And so now we have beautiful young Ibrahim Toure, and all of the beautiful young men and women in Burkina Faso, because he's not doing this by himself. He's not coming up with these ideas by himself. He isn't protecting himself. Those are other men putting their bodies on the line to die for him so that he can be the symbol of our new leadership. Young men and women make up that government that made those decisions to kick the French out. Young men and women whose face we don't see and whose names we don't know made the decision to revolutionize agriculture and created one of the finest agribusiness in Africa today, outproducing everybody in Burkina Faso. And so we have an obligation when we talk about African Liberation Day. We have an obligation when we're talking about reparations. We're not just talking about some money. They can give us all the money in the world. If we cannot create the conditions to give us back the mind of the ancestors that we possessed before we met them, reparations will mean nothing. You will do nothing with it. You can't unless you're in Africa. Do you understand what I'm saying? You know, we think freedom is just having the genocide we have in the Congo. And I'm going to speak on that a little bit. Because I don't agree with the attack on Kagame. I don't agree with the attack on Kagame no more than I would have agreed, and I didn't agree then when they attacked Idi Amin Dada. I gave him the Malcolm X Award while he was under attack. Now we know, we can see and hear his speeches and see the white people were lying about him, lying about what he was trying to do, lying about what he was thinking. Don't wait too late to think that about Kagame. You better do your research. Southern Congo used to be Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi before the Berlin Conference, and before Britain and Belgium and the Americans cut it off because of the wealth that was there and then called it Eastern Congo. But they not only cut off the land, they cut off the people who we call Tutsi and Hutus who lived there, and never accepted them as Congolese and treated them like outsiders all these centuries. M23, I'm sure they're committing crimes just like all of the other groups in Congo who are undisciplined and uncontrolled committing crimes, but I will guarantee you that M23 is committing less crime. Nobody, blew up when they defeated all of the mercenaries from Bulgaria and sent them running back to the UN barefooted and left the rest in the ditches. But we have Western press telling us Kagame sold out because he met with Trump, a friend of mine, and it broke my heart. I saw a little note, I'm not going to call the name, from a friend I haven't heard from for years, who's an extraordinary scholar, saying this is who Paul Kagame is, and show him meeting in 2018 with Trump. Hell, I live in a country with Trump. I'm not Trump's friend. Every president in the world met with Trump in 2018. We better be careful of what we're seeing. The current president of the Congo, who sat down to do his mineral deals with Trump's people, his father was with Lumumba when Lumumba formed his first organization, and his father was the first one to broke away and create the second organization that started with Mobutu and the Americans. And the current president's father was a part of those who assassinated Patrice Lumumba. Did you study the history? History will erase the mystery. That Paul Kagame, who may have made many mistakes, military people make mistakes, financed, backed, and armed Laurent Kabila to overthrow and get rid of Mobutu. And then the Americans assassinated Laurent Kabila. Yes, they put his son Paul in there, but Paul was nothing of his father. And Laurent Kabila was not Congolese. He was from the ethnic nation that they stole and they cut it off from the rest of Burundi, Rwanda, and Uganda. And he came from the same area that 23 is fighting today. So yes, there's a war over the mineral rights, but nobody is saying the Americans are running the mines there. The South Africans, the De Beers are running the mines there. They sent the South African army in supposedly to help the army of the Congolese. The South African army was sent in to protect the white South African mines. So we need to study history. So we won't get caught in the white man's mystery. And then we come back to Burkina Faso, where these young men and women in Niger and Mali have told the American army to get out. You remember about 5 years ago, an American soldier, a black soldier, got killed in Niger. And all of a sudden we said, there's American troops in Niger. But what we didn't get, those were black American soldiers who had infiltrated the army of Niger. And when uncovered, those intelligence officers were assassinated. And then the world heard there's something going on with American military in Niger. And we still don't understand, but thank God, those three nations with those young men and women, backed by their people, have kicked the Americans out, the British out, and the French out. And for those of us, how many Muslims in the room? Don't be afraid to be a Muslim. I used to Bismillah Rahman Rahim better than anybody in the world. I used to be Al-Hajj Amin Ash-Shahid. I went to Mecca before many of you were crawling. Or some wasn't even born. And the one thing I know is that those people they're calling terrorists in West Africa, those are not African Muslims. Those are insurgents trained in America, trained in France, and armed and financed by America, France, and Britain. They can call them Al-Qaeda or whatever they want to call them. But we've got to understand how filthy our enemies are. You cannot run the economy of France without robbing Africa. You cannot run the economy of America without robbing Africa. You cannot run Britain, this one we are standing in today, without robbing Africa. And no one is willing to sit down, except maybe a few people from the East, across the table from our leaders and say, let's make some equitable trade arrangements for your mineral resources. They come as thieves and murderers and kidnappers. And we have to be clear about how much imitation from our very aesthetics that we do of them. Because what you do in terms of your external presentation is coming from your internal orientation. So we have to think. We're doing better than ever in the history of the world. The young generation today, you're the best we've ever produced, the best trained, the best skilled, and the most revolutionary. Just because the white media don't call you revolutionaries, trust me, I've seen the changes over the years. I see what you produce with your mind. I see how you use the modern technology, but you must hook up your desire to be free, your desire to be entrepreneurs, your desire to run the communities you live in. You must hook it up with an authentic African identity. An authentic African identity. You must be clear about our ancestors. My brother was calling the libation. My Nana once I went to Ghana and I said, Nana, what are we doing when we call libation? And we are kind of afraid to say what we're really doing. We're calling the dead to be with us. Now, I know most of you are good Christian people, and I understand that. And you believe that the dead is the dead. You cannot prove scientifically that there's any such thing as death. Show me scientifically what death is. You can show me some transformation and alteration of a life organism, but you can't show the demise of that thing. Because that thing, when it dies, go back to the same elements, the manganese, the zinc, the iron, and to the rest of the earth or into the atmosphere that it came from. Back into the water that makes up most of our body that it came from. You cannot dissolve life. That's the white man's thing. That's how he fears you. Oh, you let me enslave you, I will kill you. You let me enslave you, I will kill you. You let me rob you, I will kill you. Our ancestors never spoke about death in those terms. Every tree you see comes from a tree that once was. Everybody sitting in this room have always lived. You may look differently from yourself yesterday, but you only exist because a man and a woman had sex and took elements of the totality of their being and fused it to create you as a new them. Do you understand what I just said? You have to understand it to know what our culture is. They've stolen our sacred science, scraped our sacred off, give it back to us as science, and tell us we have nothing to do with this understanding of how cosmology and ecology works. So when we talk about African liberation, we don't just want to liberate that part of our being that we call our intellect. We want to also liberate that part of our being we call our spirit, which is all around us. Everybody in this room gives off light that we can't see. We know we radiate, but we don't talk about it like that. When a man and a woman is attracted to each other, what attracts you? Is it the energy around you? Is it the smell about you? But every aroma is energy. And every bit of energy comes from the rest of cosmology. That's why in our language you will not find a word that speaks of God as human or the divine as human. It's like in the Ewe language, they say, Sobe Lisa. The divine is the totality of everything. It is the totality of creation itself. And we are aspects of that totality. So if we talk about African culture, You're not going to have a political system or an economic system that is going to allow you freedom unless you attach it to your ancestral cultural reality. And you need to get busy figuring out, what is that? And it's some simple things. What is love? What is justice? What is honesty? How do we eradicate envy? How do we eradicate jealousy? How do we eradicate egoism? How do we eradicate arrogance in our character and in the character of the community that we're a part of? Alpha, is your light working? Alpha, is your light working? Oh, good. I hadn't seen the lights so I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't want to talk above your head. We had a song when I was in church when I was young, called Up Above My Head, I Hear Music in the Air. I'm trying to be music in the air for you. But the music I'm trying to be is the music of our ancestors. I am my ancestor. When my mama and my dad gave birth to me, they gave birth to their four mama and dads who gave birth to them. And they had been given birth to by the 8, had been given birth to by the 16, given birth to by the 32, given birth to by the 64, and it go back into the million, and it all culminates in me until I gave birth to those 7 children I had. And guess what? Each one of them is the same person, manifest themselves in another time. I am my parents before yesterday. My parents was me yesterday. And you cannot disprove that in any scientific theory you want to write. This is how our ancestors saw the world. This is how they thought in the world. And if we're going to build a nation state, if that concept is suitable, I don't think that concept works for us. The fantasy of Western democracy, which is nothing but a hypocritical illusion, will never work for us. We always say, oh, we want democracy in Africa, we want democracy in Africa. Or they overthrew democracy. That's childish silliness. I live in America, that's supposed to be the epitome of democracy. It has never existed. Democracy has never existed. That thing you see in America is a fantasy. That's why we have something called an electoral college. That you can have 180 million people vote, and it doesn't matter because you got a handful of wealthy people who's going to make the decision who the president is going to be. While they put you under the illusion that vote, million votes. And a few hundred people will decide who the president of the United States is going to be, and nothing nobody could do about it. And they tell you it's a democracy. So we have to really be clear on what do we want to build. When we had the great kingdoms in Africa, when we had the great civilizations in Africa, what structural organization system did we use to run them? Study our history. Why did it work? It did not fall apart on its own. People came from the outside and saw the beauty of what we had. Instead of saying, teach me, they came to take it with their weaponry and their murder and their robbery, and they tore it all down. And we would move in other parts of Africa and build it again, and here they come again with the same methodology. What was it that our ancestors had before we met the European? And we got to stop being afraid to call a chicken and a bird a bird. Stop that. There's a word, and I see my time is about 2 seconds from up. The word is called DE. It comes out of the Greek, it means doer. Anywhere you see DE, when we speak English, it means doer. And then there's another little word, it's called EVIL. Look it up in your, what's your big dictionary here, and it would tell you that the word means anything which is anti-nature. So the DE and EVIL, the devil, is those who do things that is anti-nature. That's simple to understand. And we who live on the richest piece of real estate in the world, with all of the wealth in the world, with millions of years of history of trying to do the right thing by nature, by cosmology and ecology, is confused about some backwards, ignorant bandits that will murder 150,000 women and children in Palestine and pretend it never happened. And cry because someone called a Jewish person Jewish, and they say, anti-Semitic, anti-Semitic. Let's send all of our armies to protect some Jewish people because somebody said some words anti-Semitic, and we just murdered 150,000 women and children and think nothing of it. Because somebody came to take their land back, that we were having a musical concert on land that we had slaughtered the people and took from them. And we're going to pretend when they came to fight back over their land that they're the criminals and we have a right to slaughter their women and children and have the world, even the black world, sit silently by and let it happen. That same one in Israel will come to your door in Africa and take more than the diamonds they sell all over the world from you, and take more than the gold that they seem to exclusively sell over the world from you, while we pretend we don't know where they got the diamonds and the gold from. So Pan-Africanism, reparations, tie the notion of it up to your ancestral understanding of cosmology, ecology, because that is the only reality that will give you freedom. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Smalls. Often we don't get everything in detail in such short time.